In se govori lahko tudi.
En, dva.
Ok, lepo pozdravljeni na okrogli mizi. Najprej bom povedala par stvari v slovenščini, preden začnemo zares. Pogovor bo potekal v angleščini, tako da bi lepo prosila, če kdo potrebuje slučajno prevod, to moramo zagotoviti, naj pove zdaj, čim prej, pa mu bomo to sproti prevajali oziroma povzemali. Če pa ne, bi pa kar nadaljevala v angleščini oziroma v vsakem primeru bo. So, a warm welcome to our guests from Latvia. On my left is Renārs Vimba. He's the director of Mellow Mud. It's his first feature. It will be screened in Kinoteca this evening. He won the Crystal Bear in Berlinale in 2016 in a program for its generation 14+. And he also won some other Latvian national and international awards. It was a very successful film, and it was also an international co-production. On my left is Alise Gelze. She is the producer of Mellow Mud, but she's also a producer of quite a lot of international co-productions that are in production now. And also the producer of Mommy, I Love You, which won a special jury prize in Berlinale Generation K+, right? A couple of years ago. It was, if I am correct, one of the first films to sort of start the new Latvian film resurgence, I guess. And on my right is Lelda Ozola. She works at the National Film Center of Latvia, and she runs the media desk or the Creative Europe desk in Latvia. And this is Robert Vinovskis. He is a producer and co-producer. You guys will probably know films from Signe Bauman, right? You co-produced Rocks in My Pockets, which was also screened here in Slovenia. It had distribution here. And currently he's working on her new film, I think, My Love Affair with Marriage, which is in production. But he's primarily here because he also ran a restoration of a Cannes classic. They had a film, Latvia had a film in Cannes Classics program this year. It's called Four White Shirts. It's a very interesting film. It's a musical comedy about the rebellious youth in Latvia under the Soviet Republic in the 60s. It was banned for 20 years, and you can see it tomorrow in Kinoteca. So, what I really want to know first is, how do you guys see the new resurgence of Latvian cinema in the last couple of years? We talked a bit earlier, and Alise said that it started with cash rebates, and then Latvia started giving funding for international co-production, and now they have a centennial project, which is a larger cultural projects for the Latvia's centennial, which is this year. And they've actually increased funding for films quite a bit. It's interesting because Latvia is very comparable to Slovenia, and they have the same sort of number of inhabitants and a similar GDP. And they started in 2013, 2014 with the amount of funding that was really similar to what we have now. And there's been a resurgence in the past couple of years. So maybe Alise and Lelda, could you help me to understand how it happened and what's happening now?
I think it all started. It all started on a very low point when the crisis was there, and we didn't really have a hope that something will change, because when someone cuts something so big as our film funding at that time, it's always easy to cut, but it's very hard to get back the money. So at that point, somehow was initiated also from film people, film producers, like City Film Fund, Riga Film Fund, to establish cash rebate, which, if I'm correct, started as a very small percentage, 5 to 10% at the very beginning, just to somehow give us, the producers, the possibility to work with something on the foreign films coming to Riga. At the very beginning, actually, it was mostly Russian films coming to shoot in Latvia. Like for, I think, at least 2 or 3 years, it was very active. Like a lot of Russian series were coming to shoot in Riga and using the cash rebate and also local talent. And then also the big crisis in Russia happened, so that stopped as well. So some new initiatives came also from Producers Association, where me and Robert is part of, to what can we do to raise a bit more somewhere. And it ended up like to raise the Riga Film Fund cash rebate, and also National Film Center started the same initiative with the national money. So at the moment we have 2 cash rebates, Riga Film Fund with 20% and National Film Fund also with 20%. And actually last year we have managed to combine it, both cash rebates, and we can, for some projects, we can get up to 40% of cash rebate. It gave some impulse, I think, for local industry not to survive the crisis, and parallelly to that, the initiative of 100th anniversary films was pushed. So I mean, it ended up actually in last 2-3 years that it was very active. It was very hard also for us to actually do some co-production projects, because there was a lot of shootings happening, and of course it was also for us filmmakers somehow a risk, because this money was given and we had to give a result of audience, let's say, of the amount of audience in the cinema.
To co-producing in many different ways, and thus they established the partnerships in different countries, and this enabled them also together to take the decision whether to apply to Euromage or not. And there is also, as we all know, that the country has to pay to Euromage, so that there is a big pressure to somehow over the years to make the balance even, more or less, from what you pay. That is another driving force behind all that.
But more than 500,000, right, in 2017. That's pretty good.
Yes. But it is another bureaucratic mechanism, I think, for the practical side for producers. That is a very most probably difficult decision to take, whether to do this game or not, or whether to just co-produce on the national funds of different countries. But it is something strategic that they decide at one point what they do when they see the benefits of that.
I also was wondering about restoration, and I was wondering if Robert, you can explain a little bit about it. You guys have a strategy that the film center runs, and then the different films get funded through different initiatives. So could you please explain a little bit about how the restoration for Four White Shirts was funded, and how other films are sort of getting funding from different places?
Yes, there are basically three ways to finance the restoration. Four White Shirts is a bit of exception. It's actually it's private initiative. We applied to culture capital, culture endowment fund, which we have, and we got some support, and then also some private money was invested in order to restore that film, which is very important for the Latvian audience. And then it turns out that that Cannes classic program thinks the same. So that was a nice surprise. But on a larger scale, actually, we are working now on a big project, a 3 years project of digitalization of 40,000 minutes and restoration of 1,000 minutes, like full restoration, frame by frame, which is financed by European Union funds meant for the digitalization of national archives. So it includes the library, National Library, documents, books, and the film is only a small part of it. But still, using that financing, we can do restoration, like frame by frame restoration of 15 feature films, and much more digitalization of documentaries, archive material starting from the beginning of 20th century till the 90s of 20th century.
So when you say a small part, that's still 1 million only for film restoration, just for you guys to sort of try to imagine. That's 1 million.
800,000 for the 3 years project. As I understand, it's a first part of the project. Hopefully it will continue after 2020.
And another thing that I think is very interesting with the National Film Center and how you approach marketing, distribution, promotion of your domestic films is this film site Filmas, which is established and funded by the National Film Center. And it works partly as IMDb a little bit and partly as video on demand for domestic territories, if I understand correctly.
Yes, this initiative also started, I think, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, when the Film Center understood that once the active life of the film is over, then it disappears. Then it's not in the cinemas anymore, and the producers are carrying on with their next projects, and this is somewhere, in the air. And then we agreed with the producers that, let's say, 5 years after the film is made, they give it for free back to the film center for use of their national VOD, you may say. We are a government organization, so we can't charge any money for that, so it's actually free to the public. But my colleagues are making separate agreements with each of the producers on each of the films. I think now when the production agreements are signed with the Film Center, then there is this clause that says that in 5 years you have to, put this project on that platform. But at the beginning it wasn't like that. It started like a discussion on an individual basis. I think there are more than 100 films now there that are available for free. It actually started so that it was not available for the whole public, but it was available for the library network. Because that was like 9 or 10 years ago. Then the VOD was not so developed yet, but there were libraries in the whole country with computers, and first people had to go to the libraries to watch those films, and now it is open to everyone.
And it also works with educators, and the films can be used for education purposes.
Yes, and the next initiative was that we are struggling also, I think, most probably as many European countries, with audience development, that people are not used to watching films, and they're not used to watching more difficult films than just straightforward entertainment and so on. And the initiative was that we somehow have to go to do something to push into the school system. And it's not, at least in Latvia, it's very difficult to talk to the Ministry of Education. But then the Film Center decided just to do something on voluntary basis, basically. So they worked out a manual for teachers. I picked some 20 Latvian films and excerpts from those films, and made a separate section of this website that was meant that is called Films in Schools. And then it was advertised to school teachers, so they can approach us, get their individual password, get the manual, and then they can use films, let's say if they teach history, or if they teach visual arts, or if they teach some social subjects. Then they have the guide how they can use films, what questions they should ask to teachers, to pupils, what they have to tell, what excerpts they should show, and so on. And this is working quite successfully. Of course, this is like it is again that the teachers need to want to do it. Nobody is saying you have to do it. This is like on voluntary basis, but I think the whole idea was that if you make it easy for the teacher, then he or she will be happy to use this and to enrich the way they are working with pupils. And also in that way they will watch more Latvian films.
In the future as well. Yeah. What I found interesting and what to me or to us in Slovenia is a complete science fiction is that Latvia currently has 6 feature animation projects in production, which is for different audiences, from small children to adults, which is what Robert is producing. And it's, I think the question is now in 2018 and 2019, the films from the Centennial program will come out. And hopefully the response will be great. But how to keep the increase in funding, right? Because now I guess you can't go back to what you guys had in 2013 or 14.
Yeah, actually there has been already moved forward initiative. It's going to be like a side project which will continue this anniversary kind of film initiative, that it's going to be films like under umbrella of
continuation of
yes,
100.
but it's like a topics about like feeling engaged, like personal engagement of nation and national themes, and but it's very blur, so that actually yes, actually you can find on every film to go under this umbrella, because of course for the politicians just to go and say raise our like basic budget is impossible, so you have to put these initiatives. And then there's another initiative which is in the air, is to have like a separate financing for children films or youth films and animations.
There are those two competitions are already on, so to say. This is one is the national identity thing that is very broad definition, as Alise says, and another one is children and youth films. There was a development competition already last year, and this year in autumn there will be production competition. And this is again exactly as Alise says. And to answer your question earlier, how do we keep up the financing? And this is that we think or our management thinks of those new initiatives, defines them, goes and says, you know, we need to continue the 100 years, we can't just drop back, and this is the idea, this is the idea, this is the idea, and suddenly some of those ideas go through. You know, not all of them, of course.
So this is basically a separate funding initiative, but it's under the National Film Center.
And also, I think the same works with cash rebate. Like, we are really struggling, like the producers, to really fulfill every year's plan that we, like this year was a unique situation that both cash rebate funds are finished, and they were finished already in April. The money was gone. So I think it's a good point when to go to politicians and say it's not enough, that there's more interest and there's a lot of projects, getting without fund, but wishing to shoot in Latvia. So all kind of these things can help.
Yeah, because this is a shocking number actually for us as well. If we count, there are currently this year 39 films that are co-productions and are in one way or the other financed by one of those many financing possibilities. 39 for Latvia. It's incredible. But it's also animated and also documentaries, but feature-length films.
Because you guys have the National Film Fund, and there's also Culture Capital Fund, and then the municipality of Riga also finances the cash rebate, right? Separately from the national cash rebate. So I guess it's very important to try to find ways also for us to diversify the funding somehow.
Yes, locally it is very important, but then what we have understood maybe only recently, that when you go outside your territory, then you have to market it as one. You know, because if you start telling people, then we have one in Riga, you know, the cash rebate, and then one in the National Film Center, and then they say, well, we don't understand what you are talking about. So the marketing, what the producers are doing and what the Film Center colleagues are doing is that we market it as one possibility with two pockets in a way, and then you find the ways how you go around. That's very important.
Are there any questions from anyone in the crowd? This is Daniel Hočevar. He's a producer with Vertigo Films, and he does a lot of co-productions as well.
It's really nice to listen to a success story, because I think that we just go backwards, because we had like almost 9 million on disposal from different sources 7 years ago, and now we have 4.5, I think, for everything, including the promotion, distribution, and so on and so forth. But what I wanted to ask is cash rebate. Is it open for all kind of projects, or only for international projects coming to Latvia to shoot there or to use Latvian services?
It's mostly like the main idea is for foreign productions to come and shoot in Latvia. For Riga Film Fund, it's only for production, but for National Film Center, it's for production and post-production. But the thing is that you have to spend the money the same year.
Okay.
There are some restrictions you have to count.
And you have to apply through a Latvian company. But
and it's also running deadline. It's like it's open the whole year, but the first comes, the first takes.
So, but you can't use it for your project. If you're a majority producer, it's only for foreigners.
No.
And out of those 39 films you mentioned earlier as co-productions, how many of them are majority, or they're minority Latvian 39 co-productions, or what?
Yeah, most of them are minority.
Okay.
And Natasha is the managing director of the National Film
We've
Center.
been introduced. Thank you. It's so nice to hear all of this. But one thing that I would also be interested in is the role of public television for you, for producers. Is it connected? Is it working well? Is it part of your industry, or how does it work?
It's not really a part of the industry, unfortunately. And it's we have a lot of discussion all the time with Latvian National TV, because I think they are struggling themselves to survive, So it's not really a pocket for us to go. We are more struggling so that they pay at all for Latvian films.
And it is basically because they are still, I don't know how it is in Slovenia, but in Latvia there is the heritage from the Soviet times, that the public television is still a huge organization and producing most of their content in-house. So they have to maintain the building, they have to maintain the technology, they have to give work to their own employees, and they commission, there is by law that they have to buy take certain content from independent sector, but still the majority they are producing in-house. And that explains why they can't, spend more money outside. But at least in the last years, at least I think they have become more active in paying small license fees and at least showing the films that have been produced outside their building, which wasn't the case, let's say, 10 years ago. They didn't need that at all, but now this is the small positive development.
Also, I think that the other players have come as a competition, which is good, like VOD platforms.
Yes, and
we have three which are
yes. Mobile telephones streaming is very active.
So they are competing with each other, and then the TV has also to compete to get that these exclusive rights. So that's what actually pushes them to pay more, because we can start to choose not to give them, but to give to the platforms.
And another thing what is diversifying the funding maybe a little bit, but this is also very, very initial stage, is that multiplexes are beginning, or the distributors behind the multiplexes are investing into production of films. So there are a couple of very successful, very light films, but that are produced without state funding at all, but produced with the funding of multiplexes and private sources.
So the multiplexes are the majority funders, or?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
I think if there are no more questions. Oh, you have one. Sabina Briški runs the media desk, or the Creative Europe desk here in Ljubljana.
Yes, I'm Lelda in Slovenia. I would have a question, considering the 16 films that were chosen for the 100th anniversary and the audience development. Who was choosing them, and was there any other approach to choose the films which there is a big potential, let's say, pressure on them being in this scheme? And the other question is connected to the VOD platform. How was the process of talking to producers to really give the films after these 5 years or of the period? Yeah, so these two questions.
Yeah, the first answering the first question about how did we get to these 16, it was the process that started at least 3 years ago, and there was a competition for development. What was clear at the very beginning by my colleagues in the management and the production department at the film center was how many of which kind of films we want in the end. So that was calculated from the very beginning, that it will be this and this number of fiction, this and this number of animation, and this number of documentaries. And then in each of those three kinds of films, there were development competitions. And first, there were more films financed in the development process. So they did the development work. And then the next year, they returned for the production. And the best ones were chosen, or the ones that made the best catalog together, so that they complement each other, that they are not all eggs in one basket, but somehow are more artistic, more audience friendly, and something like that. But the system of choosing the films, I don't know actually how it is with you, but for us, it is that there are three different, three people commissions in each kind of films. And in each of the commission, there is one film center representative and two people from the industry that are appointed or together with the professional associations in the industry. And those two people change every 2 or 3 years, the people outside the film center. And these are the people who decide. The director of the film center, Dita Rietuma, she is like signing the expert decision, but she also has the right to object. So if she doesn't think the expert commissions have done the right thing, then she can change the decision. And about the VOD platform, the beginning, as every beginning, was not so easy maybe, and it is human. I think some producers thought this is a great idea because their film that they are not using anymore will still be used by people and watched by people. Some people were not thinking like that, and they were stepping back and not signing this agreement, but this was on voluntary basis in a way. The film center didn't have any at that point any legal legal tool to make people do this if they didn't want to do it. Now it's different with the production contracts where this is written that you have to do it. Then this is different. But I think by now majority of the producers, correct me if I'm wrong, don't think this is a bad idea. They think this is a very good idea.
Okay, Nerina, there's another question. You've met Nerina. She works at the National Film Center.
We met also. You mentioned these in-house produced programs made by the public TV. There is audience, and you mentioned only VOD like competition, but there is also private TV, I guess.
Yes, but the private TV, I don't think they are very active in taking the content.
We have like now these platforms like two telephone companies, one which was wire telephone in older times, let's say, and then they became like this first digital TV in Latvia, and now they have like their own TV and also video on demand platform. And then the same happened with the Latvian mobile telephone company, which have started also the same kind of platform. And then the big Scandinavian company MGT, which also have the Viaplay, which is also in Scandinavia. And those are the three companies in video on demand who usually if they buy the film, they don't want it to be shown at that period in national TV or any TV. So they are players for us producers because the amount they are paying, it's very similar. Like it's actually more than national TV can pay or offers us to play. So they automatically go on the second level on the table of talks, and they have become actually quite aggressive as well, like really demanding the films and trying to get the films from producers.
So could you maybe for example tell us about Renārs, about your film, because it emerged it premiered in 2016 on Berlinale, had a good festival run. And how is it? How does it live now? What was the life of the film?
So I think it's a question.
Okay. Now we internationally we had sales, and it was sold also to your region as well, and it still travels. Like the festival travel ended at the end of last year. But nationally, it's on Vimeo on demand, then it's on VOD platforms, and we on that film we had special agreement with TV because we were short with the
national
production. Yes, with the production money, so they came on board with exclusive rights for the TV and paid us like this amount, but they thought the film is worth. So in the moment when it's released from this exclusive, then I mean it has been in all TVs still, and
I remembered one more important thing about 100 Years films, because it is a special program. There is an agreement with public TV as well, that 6 months after the cinema premiere, the films, all the 16 films, will be aired on public TV, and all those 16 films after the TV has shown it will appear on the national VOD platform, so it will not have these 4 or 5 years span for.
We have, for example, children film for 100 anniversary films, and what we did because of this agreement, we have a separate agreement before national TV release. We have exclusive rights for one of these VOD platforms that they will show it before. So that was our window to earn a bit more money, because afterwards it actually won't be possible.
But you do have quite a lot of distribution options already. It feels like.
Like the films in the cinema, we distribute ourselves. We have one person responsible for that, because it's not
It's a national distributor.
Yes, because for example, if you like, there's this company. Usually, you can choose one of 2 companies which distributes like these really small towns, where they have like, I don't know, Blu-ray or yes, in a very good version. But like the screens which we consider as a DCP places, we distribute ourselves, because which runs the whole Baltic, because that would make more sense for that film. But for like very national film, it doesn't make sense to go through the distributor for us.
Okay. Any more questions? All right, so I think we will conclude the roundtable. Thank you guys very much for coming and enlightening us with a very instructive case, I think. And I would like to invite you to screenings at the Cinematheque. Tonight, Melomat at 9, and tomorrow 4 White Shirts, and then the retrospective of new Latvian cinema continues throughout the week. So thanks a lot. And